Do you make or take a photo? Or do you maybe discover it? We're gonna explore this topic today as I walk around with my M.Zuiko 90mm, snapping photos of everything I can find. Since the weather today is icy, cold, harsh and pretty grey, I decided that my photos should match that and also be kind of grey. So I set my camera in black and white mode, and as you might have noticed by now, I have a new thing for the square aspect ratio, both in photos and in video. So I did also set my camera to 1:1 in aspect ratio, just because I felt like it. When I walk around with a camera like this, I look for beauty. I look for beautiful details in particular. Beautiful shapes, textures, beautiful ways the light shines through or on surfaces, beautiful contrast. Then I try to recreate the beauty I saw in reality in the camera. Many times I fail, quite often I succeed somewhat, and sometimes I even manage to get a picture that's even more beautiful than what I saw in real life. And I think this is the beauty of macro photography. The macro lens can see into this other dimension that's always around us, but which we can just barely sense without a camera and a macro lens. Every time I go out to do photography, I try to imagine what I will find that day. It depends on the weather and what kind of stuff I want to shoot, what I feel like shooting, and then I try to bring appropriate gear that I feel like using that day that could match the weather and what I think I will find. But very often I don't find what I expect to find. Today was such a day. I expected to shoot mostly dead leaves and maybe grass and stuff like that, but what I found was beautiful patterns of ice that is like half melted, and I could never imagine that I could make that ice look like this if I shot it in monochrome mode on my camera, and I was really delighted to find this. With this in mind, I cannot really say that I make my photos. I feel more like I stumble upon them. I discover them. I uncover this world that always exists there but that nobody sees or thinks about, and I discover stuff. And of course I could be someone who makes my photos. I could be indoors in a studio arranging everything exactly according to a plan that I had in mind. But that is not how my brain works. That is not what I want to do. I enjoy exploring stuff. I enjoy finding my photos and stumbling upon them. The small surprises that I get hundreds of every time I go out to take photos, that is the core of what makes photography fun to me. I would be bored to death if I had to make my photos. Today I shot in aperture priority mode on my OM1 camera. I adjusted the aperture according to what depth of field I wanted, and then I made sure that the shutter speed was always above 1/250th of a second when possible. And I shot mostly at ISO 200, but in some cases I had to increase it a bit to get 1/250th in shutter speed. And I used the exposure compensation dial a lot today to get the tones and the contrast I wanted. Extra important, I think, in black and white. And I still had to do a lot of adjustments afterwards in Lightroom to get the right kind of contrast and gray tones. I find this a very challenging thing when doing black and white photography. Whether you make or take your photos, I think it comes down to how you are wired as a person, how your brain works. I always approached art as a kind of experiment. Sometimes I have an idea or a vision for what I want my photos to be like, what I want to make, but almost always I discover things along the way that make the art more interesting than I had anticipated and than I could ever plan, actually. And I think that it is this surprise that is at the heart of what makes making art enjoyable to me personally. How about you? Do you make or take or discover your photos? What's your answer to this question, and how do you explain it? I would be very interested to hear your thoughts about your approach in the comments. And I would also be very interested to hear what you think about my new style of videos. I'm still in the process of discovering it, but I felt like I wanted to change things up a bit and to make my videos a bit more personal in style. So yeah, let me know what you think, and see you soon again in the next video.